Today I'll be looking at retirement savings statistics that will completely change how you view your own financial progress. You know, over many years helping retirees, I've discovered that what's considered average is often misrepresented in ways that create a lot of unnecessary anxiety for most retirees. And that's exactly why I'm making this video today, to break down the true numbers behind retirement savings and show you where you actually stand compared to your peers. So let's get right into it. So I think a big problem today is that in the financial media, you see all kinds of different contradictory statistics that show up, right? And so different sources report wildly different savings figures. I always see this with, here's how much the average retiree needs to retire. And it's literally between 1.5 million and 3 million or something like that. Financial advisors and the media, they both use these to create a sense of urgency. But I think the problem is that instead it often creates a lot of anxiety. And that actually can lead to inaction for many people. And I'll give you some examples of what I see out there too, besides just those big numbers needed to retire. So when researching this video, there's one study that says that the average 401k balance is $92,000. Right? Another one says that it's $136,000. Then there was another study that showed that half of Americans have nothing saved at all. And so all of these numbers, right, they're meant to inform you, but instead they're just creating confusion and usually planning paralysis. So the psychological impact ends up being either people avoid planning at all or they'd make impulsive decisions. And neither one of those paths is actually going to lead to good outcomes for you. One study claims that people experiencing statistical anxiety delay serious retirement planning by an average of 7.2 years. And so, think about that. Depending on the size of your portfolio, that could literally be potential losses of, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And another problem could be that an over-reliance on statistics can give people a false sense of security. You might be fixated on benchmarks instead of your own personal planning. So, go back to the example I talked about earlier where it says, your average retiree needs $1.5 million to retire comfortably. And you might have hit that mark and think, well, great, I'm in good shape and it's time to retire. But in actuality, your spending needs might be way greater than the average person. And so you might be actually looking at a retirement where you fail, even though you have the average retirement balance that they claim that a retiree needs. So, look, you can think of, relying on statistics like this and kind of think of it in terms of planning a cross-country trip and using the average gas price to plan that trip, right? Yeah, it's a data point for you, but it doesn't tell you anything about your actual journey. And, if you're starting in California, using the average price for gas in the United States isn't really going to help you budget for that entire trip, right? Now, I do think that there is a solution to statistical anxiety, and I think there's actually a very specific approach that can help you shift your mindset. And I also want to be careful and emphasize that, look, this isn't about ignoring the numbers, but I would say more about using them effectively, right? And so instead of ignoring the numbers, let's change your relationship with them so they can inform you instead of just overwhelming you. So the big broad idea is create a goal-centered planning framework. You want to shift from a statistics-based planning framework to a goals-based planning framework. Right? Comparing yourself to averages doesn't help you, right? You want to actually focus on what do I actually want? Instead of asking, how do I compare to the average? You might want to ask instead, what do I actually want my retirement to look like? And then what resources will that require? So this is where you want to start. Now, if you're wondering how to break free from retirement statistical anxiety and create a personalized plan that actually gives you confidence, head to the description after the video where you can complete a short questionnaire, and I'll send you a personalized video from me that will show you exactly how to apply these principles to your specific situation. Now back to the video, the first thing I think is important to do is identify, I think there are 3 core principles of goals-based planning. And so we're gonna go over those now. The first principle is personal relevance. So instead of this focus on statistics, the number one thing is retirement planning has to connect to your life goals. Instead of saying, I want to retire at 65, you want to connect your plan to something specific. And so let me give you an example of this. Maybe you say, I want to retire in 5 years so I can move closer to my grandkids and spend summers traveling the national parks with my spouse. That's a lot more tangible for you than just some vague number like 65 for really no reason. It's actually tied to what truly matters. And I think the real key here is that the emotional connection is going to increase the likelihood of you actually taking action. And that's what you need. Okay, the second core principle is the progress principle. So here you want to measure progress against personal plans, not benchmarks. Instead of comparing yourself to other people, like, oh, hey, my buddy has $5 million and I only have 800 grand, you need to use a plan that's actually tailored to your life. You might look at it and say, okay, right, I made a financial plan. We figured out what my goals are, and we figured out what my budget is. And so if my plan shows me that I need 75 grand a year in retirement, and right now I'm currently on track with, say, $68,000 a year, right? Well, then you can go, okay, great. Now I have to increase my savings by X dollars a month, and then I can close the gap in 4 years. So, by focusing on your own trajectory, you're more likely to make small course corrections instead of giving up or being, overwhelmed by looking at how much money your friend has or, how much this, retirement planning article said that the average retiree needs in their savings to retire. Right now, the third principle is psychological ownership. This is where you want to actually be involved in the creation of your plan. So creating a personal vision is going to increase your commitment and follow through. So what I mean here is if you are involved in co-creating your retirement plan, and that means, you help select when to claim Social Security, choosing whether you want to, let's say downsize, or, move in retirement or whatever, right? Or choosing whatever charitable goals that you have, right? You're going to feel more invested. You compare that to if you just came to me, I asked you, about your finances. I took that and came back to you with a 120-page PDF and said, here you go, do this. You're never going to follow through on that. So you need to be very involved in this planning process and take psychological ownership of it. And that way you're going to have a feeling of commitment and you're probably actually going to follow through. The next thing I want to do is kind of lay a framework for how you can actually implement a goals-based retirement plan. And so I think there are about 5 different steps that you should be taking, right? First, you want to create a retirement vision profile, and I'm going to get into the specifics of each of these in a second. Second, you want to establish a progress tracking system, and this has to be based on your personal goals, and that's very important. Third, you want to use a statistical filter to kind of process the data without anxiety. Fourth, you want to develop a decision framework, and this has to prioritize personal relevance. And then finally, I think you want to set semi-annual reviews instead of daily tracking. So now let's kind of break down each one of these. So how do you create a retirement vision profile? Well, first of all, let's define what that is. So a retirement vision profile would be a detailed description of what you want your retirement to look like. And that's going to include things like lifestyle, location, activities, and your overall goals. Okay, so how do you do this? Well, first of all, you want to write down what a perfect retirement day looks like for you. Really focus on that. Then you want to identify your core expenses. You need to understand what it's going to take to maintain that kind of lifestyle. Then you got to think about your discretionary spending. So this is things like travel, hobbies, maybe eating out, gifts for family, and so on. Now, once you have that vision, you can move on to the next step, but hopefully this is something that is a lot more concrete for you and, more of a motivator than just saying, I need $1 million in my retirement account. And I'll give you an example, right? So let's say we've got Bob and Susan, and they go and they sit down and they create a retirement vision profile. And they decide, okay, we want to retire to Florida. We want to travel twice a year. And then we want to support our grandchildren's education, right? They may come to find out that initially they thought, oh, we need $2 million to be able to do that. But then once they have this retirement vision profile down, it may occur to them that, oh gosh, we only actually need $70,000 a year to support this vision because we have pension and Social Security. All right, next, you want to establish a progress tracking system based on your personal goals and not averages. So this would be a tracking system that measures how close you are to your retirement goals instead of comparing them to arbitrary averages. So you can set milestones based on your retirement vision profile. You can focus on monthly income needs instead of total savings. And you can use like a percent to goal tracking rather than savings comparisons. So again, what do I mean by this? Well, it's like, okay, instead of fixating on, do I have $1 million saved? You can ask, am I on track to generate $5,000 a month in retirement income? This is going to help you eliminate the stress and give you a clear action plan. All right, the next step is use a statistical filter to process retirement numbers constructively. So if you're reading the financial press and you see some number and it kind of alarms you, I think the first step is going to be pause before reacting. And then you need to ask yourself, does this number apply to me? Number 2, check who the stat includes. Is it a general average or is it a specific group, for example? And then you want to compare the numbers to your own goals, not arbitrary benchmarks. And last, I think it's really important to avoid headlines that trigger fear-based decision making. And a simple example is, a headline might say average retirement savings for people 60 plus is $182,000. But it doesn't even really matter because look, if you have other income sources like pension and real estate, the number is completely irrelevant to you. So I'll give you an example. A lot of people panic when they see reports that they need $3 million to retire. But I can tell you right now that could be too little for some people and way too much for others. It's very much going to depend on your actual specific situation, and it really is going to go back to that retirement vision profile instead of, that arbitrary benchmark. All right, next, I think it's important to develop a decision framework that prioritizes personal relevance over comparisons. So number 1, you want to ask, does this support my retirement vision profile, right? Will this decision help me live the lifestyle I actually want to live? So here's a great example, okay? Your friend just bought a retirement vacation home, and this tempts you to do the same thing too, right? Well, now you need to go back to your retirement vision and see, does this actually help you live the lifestyle you want? And if your retirement vision was, well, no, my retirement vision is a retirement that emphasizes simplicity and travel flexibility, well, then having a retirement vacation home makes no sense for you. All right. So number 2, you want to ask the question, is this aligned with my progress plan, not someone else's benchmark? Am I doing this because it fits my plan or because I feel like I'm behind? Let's say that you just read an article that said that most retiree investment portfolios are too conservative. And so you're thinking, man, am I too conservative? Maybe I should increase my exposure to the stock market, right? But if your plan already shows that you're on track with your current allocation, there's no need to change course. You should just stay the path, all right? And then number 3, does this follow the personal guardrails I've already set? What rules did I commit to ahead of time, and am I respecting them now? You guys that watch this channel regularly, I'm big on using a lot of rules and guardrail type strategies along with retirement planning. And so, that feeds into this, right? If the stock market drops 15% and you feel like selling, you need to go back to the guardrails in your plan before making a knee-jerk reaction. And probably it's telling you, no, you shouldn't sell, or, likely not do anything at all, in this case. All right. And last, set semi-annual reviews instead of daily tracking. And look, semi-annually is sort of arbitrary. My point here is, don't look at your accounts on a daily or even weekly basis. It's too often. Plenty of studies show that people who look at their accounts over time, or all the time, tend to overtrade, and to their detriment as well. And so I usually encourage people, maybe quarterly, but probably semi-annually is enough to check in, unless there have been major upheavals, you need to rebalance your account or something like that. All right, now, if you're wondering how to break free from retirement statistical anxiety and create a personalized plan that actually gives you confidence, head to the description after the video where you can complete a short questionnaire and receive a personalized video from me that will show you exactly how to apply these principles to your specific situation. Thanks for watching.